unaware his poor black ex was married to a Korean mafia boss. He dragged her out of a luxury mall. Boston teaches you early how power hides. It was 1:47 p.m. on Newbury Street, the first block. The one with Cartier's glass so clean you can see your own fear reflected back at you. I was 7 months pregnant, holding a garment bag I couldn't afford, when he recognized me. He didn't ask how I survived. He didn't ask where I'd been. He laughed, loud enough for the woman stepping out of Chanel to turn. He said my name like it was something dirty he'd found under his shoe. When I tried to walk away, he grabbed my arm, hard. I remember the sound my phone made when it hit the marble floor. 1:49 p.m. Because later a Boston Globe reporter would replay that security clip on Channel 7. He dragged me, not far, just enough. And the worst part, he still thought I was alone. If you believe in stories where real emotion meets consequence, where silence carries more weight than shouting, I'd be grateful if you'd like and subscribe. These stories take time to craft with care, and your support means everything. Share this if you think someone needs to hear it. Curtis Finney always had perfect timing, perfect enough to humiliate you when it mattered most. The garment bag in my hand was cream-colored, embossed with a boutique name I'd only heard in passing 2 years ago. Inside was a dress I'd picked up for alterations, simple, expensive in the way that doesn't announce itself. My husband had it made for me. Mu-jin doesn't believe in logos. I wasn't supposed to be on Newbury Street. I was supposed to be at the Isabellastewartgardnermuseum, meeting a friend for tea in the courtyard. But she'd canceled last minute, and I'd decided to handle the errand myself. That's when I heard it. Solene. The voice cut through the afternoon murmur of shoppers and traffic. I knew it immediately. 3 years hadn't changed the tenor of it, sharp, confident, used to getting what it wanted. I kept walking. Solene. Louder this time, close enough that I could smell his cologne, something woody and expensive that he probably had shipped from New York because Boston wasn't good enough. I stopped, turned. Curtis Finney looked exactly the same. Tailored navy suit, crisp white shirt open at the collar, that permanent expression of mild amusement like the world existed to entertain him. His hair was cut shorter, faded on the sides in that way white men do when they want to look edgy but professional. Wow, he tilted his head, eyes traveling from my face to my belly and back again. Look at you. I didn't respond. What are you? He gestured vaguely at my stomach, then at the street around us. What are you doing here? The question wasn't curious. It was territorial. Shopping, I said quietly. He laughed. Actually laughed, loud enough that the woman exiting Chanel with 3 shopping bags glanced over, her expression shifting from mild interest to discomfort when she registered the dynamic. Shopping. He repeated the word like I'd told a joke. On Newbury Street, that's rich. My fingers tightened on the garment bag. Curtis, I need to go. Where? He stepped closer, blocking my path. Back to Dorchester, Roxbury. Where are you living now, Solene? The way he said my name, like it was evidence of something shameful. I tried to move around him. He moved with me. I'm serious, I'm curious. His voice carried, designed to. Because last I heard you were working at that coffee shop in Allston. The one with the, what did you call it, authentic atmosphere. He was performing now. I could see it in the way he angled his body, making sure anyone nearby could hear. That was 3 years ago, I said. Right. He snapped his fingers like he'd just remembered. You left, just disappeared, didn't even have the decency to. Curtis. No, I want to know. His expression hardened. What happened? You upgrade, find some other guy to leech off. The marble floor of the shopping corridor was cold under my feet. I could feel eyes on us now. Not many, but enough. I need to leave. I turned. His hand closed around my upper arm. Not gentle, not asking. We're not done talking. The garment bag slipped. My phone, the one Mu-jin had given me, encrypted, expensive, black as midnight, tumbled from my coat pocket and hit the floor with a crack that echoed. 1:49 p.m. I would remember that timestamp later, when the security footage was played on the evening news. Curtis didn't let go. He pulled, not hard enough to hurt the baby, but hard enough to make me stumble, hard enough to make his point. You don't walk away from me, he said, quieter now, almost intimate. Not after the shit you pulled. I could feel the weight of attention shifting. A man in a business suit paused mid-stride near the Hermes window. Two teenage girls stopped pretending to look at their phones. Let go. Or what? That's when I saw him, not Mu-jin, mall security. Young guy, maybe 25, radio on his hip, polyester uniform that was supposed to convey authority. He was 10 feet away, watching. Our eyes met. He shifted his weight. Looked at Curtis's suit, at my belly, at the shopping bag on the ground. He lifted his radio to his mouth and spoke quietly, words I couldn't hear. Then he waited. He didn't come closer. Curtis was still talking, something about respect and gratitude and knowing my place. But I wasn't listening anymore. I was watching the security guard watch us. And I was realizing something that made my stomach turn. He wasn't going to intervene. Not yet. Not for me. If you're already feeling the weight of what's unfolding here, the questions about who Solene really is, why she's not reacting like someone powerless, hit that subscribe button. The truth is coming, and it's quieter than you think. Boston has a specific kind of silence. It's not the absence of sound. It's the presence of calculation. Curtis was still holding my arm, his grip looser now but not gone. He'd shifted into lecture mode, the tone he used to use when he wanted to explain why I was wrong about something, my taste in music, my opinion on restaurants, the way I pronounced certain words. You always did this, he was saying, made everything difficult, dramatic. I wasn't looking at him anymore. I was watching the corridor. The woman from Chanel had stopped. She was standing near the Tiffany entrance, shopping bags in one hand, phone in the other, but the phone wasn't raised. She wasn't recording. She was just holding it like she was deciding. The man in the business suit near Hermes had turned fully now. He was young, Asian, expensive watch catching the overhead lights. He wasn't doing anything either, just watching. A couple emerged from Louis Vuitton, older, white, dripping in casual wealth. The woman registered what was happening, touched her husband's elbow, and they kept walking. But slowly. 1:51 p.m. The security guard still hadn't moved. Are you even listening to me? Curtis gave my arm a small shake. Yes. I doubt that. He finally released me, but he didn't step back. You know what your problem always was, Solene? You thought you were better than you were. Smarter, more. That's not smart. The voice came from behind me. Female, older, with that specific Boston accent that means old money and older opinions. I turned slightly. A woman in her 60s, hair silver and perfect, was standing near the Dior entrance with another woman her age. She wasn't looking at me. She was looking at Curtis. Excuse me, Curtis said, his charm clicking back into place. The woman didn't repeat herself. She just held his gaze for 3 seconds longer than was comfortable, then turned and walked away. Her friend followed, but not before glancing back at me once. The look wasn't sympathy. It was assessment. Curtis laughed it off, but I felt him tense. "Boston," he muttered. "Everyone's got an opinion." The security guard was talking into his radio again. I could see his lips moving, see him nodding at whatever response he was getting. 1:53 p.m. That's when I noticed the second security guard. Older, broader, positioned near the Cartier entrance. He was watching too. 2 guards, both waiting. "Look," Curtis said, his tone shifting to something that might have been meant as conciliatory. "I'm not trying to be an asshole here. I'm just surprised, okay? You disappear for 3 years and suddenly you're pregnant, shopping on Newbury Street. Curtis, please." "Please what? Please pretend you didn't ghost me. Please pretend you weren't living off me for 2 years." He wasn't shouting. That was the thing about Curtis. He never shouted in public. He modulated, performed reason. But every word was designed to land. I bent to pick up my phone. The screen was cracked, a spider web spreading from the corner. Still functional, 3 missed calls. All from the same number. My hands started to shake. "Who's that?" Curtis leaned over. "Trying to see. Your new guy, the one who knocked you up." I straightened, slipping the phone into my pocket. "I need to go." "You keep saying that." Curtis crossed his arms. "But you're still here." I was still here because he was blocking my path, because the exit was behind him, because even now, some part of me was still trying not to cause a scene. That's what 3 years with Curtis had taught me, that my discomfort was less important than public peace, that I should shrink, disappear, apologize for existing in spaces I hadn't earned. I stepped to the side. He mirrored me. "Curtis." "One question." He held up a finger. "Just one, then you can go." I waited. Did you ever actually care about me? Or was I just convenient until something better came along? The thing about questions like that is they're not really questions. They're traps. Any answer I gave would be used as ammunition. So I said nothing. And that's when the man in the business suit moved. He didn't approach us. He just stopped watching and pulled out his phone, typed something quick, then slipped it back into his pocket. His eyes met mine for half a second. Then he walked away. 1:55 p.m. The security guard's radio crackled. He responded quietly, then finally started walking toward us. Curtis saw him coming and straightened, arranging his face into an expression of friendly concern. "Everything okay here?" the guard asked. He was asking Curtis. "Yeah, we're fine," Curtis said smoothly. "Just talking to an old friend." The guard looked at me. I could have said something. I should have said something. "We're fine," I heard myself say. The guard nodded slowly, looked at Curtis again, at me. At my belly. "Ma'am, do you need assistance?" The question was careful, formal, the kind of question that creates distance instead of bridging it. "No, thank you." He hesitated, then stepped back. But he didn't leave. Curtis noticed. I could see the calculation in his eyes, weighing the guard's presence against his own momentum. "See," Curtis said to me, quieter now, "this is what I mean. You make everything into a thing." My phone buzzed in my pocket. Once. Twice. Curtis smirked. "You should probably get that." I didn't move. The phone stopped buzzing. And somewhere in the back of my mind, I knew. Curtis had always been good, making himself the reasonable one. Even now, standing in the middle of Newbury Street with a security guard hovering 6 feet away, he had that expression, the one that said he was being patient with someone who was making his life unnecessarily difficult. You know what? He shook his head, doing that thing where he smiled like we were sharing a private joke. I'm glad I ran into you, really, because I've been wanting to say this. I didn't respond. You left without a word. 3 years, Solene. You didn't answer calls, texts, nothing. And I'm supposed to just what, accept that? The security guard shifted his weight. I could see him trying to decide if this qualified as a situation. In his world, probably not. No shouting, no violence, just talking. Just a man and a woman having a conversation in a luxury shopping corridor. I have a right to closure, Curtis continued. You can't just vanish from someone's life and expect. I think you should let her leave. The voice came from a woman standing near Valentino. Early 40s, black, wearing scrubs under a North Face jacket. She had that look of someone coming off a shift, exhausted but unwilling to walk past what she was seeing. Curtis turned, still pleasant. I appreciate your concern, but this is a private conversation. It doesn't look private. Well, it is. His smile tightened. And I'd appreciate you minding your own business. The woman looked at me. You okay? Before I could answer, Curtis stepped between us. She's fine, we're fine, thank you. The woman held her ground for another few seconds, then glanced at the security guard. He gave her a small nod, not reassuring, just acknowledging. She frowned but kept walking, looking back twice. 1:57 p.m. This is exactly what I'm talking about, Curtis said to me, his voice lower now. You always had people feeling sorry for you, like you were some victim. He said the word like it tasted bad. I need to go, I said again. You owe me an explanation. I don't owe you anything. That was the first time I'd said it out loud. 3 years too late, but I'd said it. Curtis's expression flickered. Just for a second, I saw something underneath the performance. Something mean. Really? He laughed, but it was different now. Sharper. You don't owe me anything. After I paid for your rent, your groceries, that laptop you needed for school. I worked, I said quietly. 20 hours a week at a coffee shop. Yeah, that really covered things. He was closer now. Not touching me, but in my space in that way that makes your throat tight. I have an attorney, he said. James Rothberg and Associates in Brookline. You know what he told me. If someone accepts financial support for an extended period, there's grounds for. For what? Restitution, compensation, he shrugged. I haven't decided yet, but I've documented everything, every Venmo, every rent check. It was a bluff, probably, but Curtis was good at making his lies sound like truth. A Boston police officer walked past. Curtis saw him. I saw him see him. The officer was young, maybe late 20s, moving with that specific casualness of someone on patrol. He glanced over, registered the scene, and kept walking. Kept walking. Curtis watched him go, then looked back at me. And smiled. See, he said quietly, nobody cares, Solene. Nobody's coming to save you. My phone buzzed again. A different pattern, not a call, a text. Curtis noticed. You should answer that, he said. Wouldn't want to be rude. I pulled out my phone. The cracked screen made it hard to read, but I could make out the message. Are you all right? 3 words, in Korean first, then English. My throat went tight. I looked up. Curtis was watching my face. What? He asked. I put the phone back in my pocket. Nothing. Didn't look like nothing. He tilted his head. Who's checking on you? I tried to walk around him again. This time he let me pass. But he followed. Is it him? Curtis called after me. Your new guy, the one paying for, he gestured at my clothes, my bag, everything. All this. I kept walking. What you do, Solene? Find some desperate older guy who doesn't know better. People were staring now. Not many, but enough. I reached the exit, pushed through the glass doors into the April afternoon. The air was cold, sharp with the promise of rain. Curtis followed me outside. I'm not done, he said. Behind him, through the glass, I could see the security guard speaking into his radio again. And I could see something else. Someone else. A man standing near the Cartier entrance, still watching. He was too far away for me to see clearly, but I knew. I knew by the way Curtis didn't see him, by the way the security guard had suddenly gone very still, by the way a woman walking past gave the man a wide berth without seeming to realize she'd done it. 2:01 p.m. My phone rang. Curtis was still talking. Something about respect, about honesty, about how I'd always been selfish. I answered. Hello. Silence on the other end, not empty silence, the kind where someone's listening. I'm fine, I said in English, then quieter in Korean, please don't come. Curtis had stopped talking. He was staring at me. Did you just, he blinked, you speak Korean? I ended the call. Since when do you speak Korean? Curtis asked. I didn't answer. He laughed, loud and disbelieving. Oh my God, you married a Korean guy, didn't you? That's Jesus, Solene, that's hilarious. He was performing again, but something had shifted. I could see it in the way he kept glancing around, like he was suddenly aware we had an audience. What you do? Go online, find some. Curtis. My voice was steady now, steadier than it had been since this started. You should leave. I'm not going anywhere until... His phone buzzed. Then again. 3 times in quick succession. He pulled it out, annoyed. His expression changed as he read. Confusion, then concern. He looked up at me, at the shopping corridor behind me. Who the fuck? He didn't finish the question. Because someone was texting him. And Curtis was realizing, finally, that he'd miscalculated. If you're seeing where this is going, if you understand that silence doesn't mean powerless, subscribe now. Because what happens next isn't loud. It's devastating. I first met Mu-jin in the courtyard of the Isabellastewartgardnermuseum. It was January, one of those Boston winter days where the cold doesn't just chill you, it inhabits you. I'd gone to the museum because it was free on Wednesdays for Massachusetts residents, and because I needed somewhere beautiful to exist for a few hours. I was 20, broke, living in a triple converted to quintuple in Alston with 4 other girls, working 40 hours a week at a coffee shop and trying to finish my degree part-time. Curtis and I had been broken up for 3 weeks. He kept texting. I was sitting on a bench in the courtyard, looking up at the empty frames where the stolen paintings used to hang. There's something honest about that space, the way it refuses to pretend the loss didn't happen, but exists beautifully anyway. The theft was in 1990, a voice said beside me. I turned. The man standing there was Korean, early 20s maybe, wearing a black wool coat and an expression of polite interest. Not handsome in an obvious way, but striking, the kind of face you remembered. I know, I said. Everyone knows, he smiled slightly, but people still mention it, like the museum needs reminding. Maybe it's not for the museum, I said. Maybe it's for us, so we remember things can be taken. He studied me for a moment, then sat down on the bench. Not close, a respectful distance. Gwak Mu-jin, he said, extending his hand. Solene. His hand was warm despite the cold. We sat there for an hour, not talking the whole time, sometimes commenting on the plants, the light, the absurdity of Boston weather, mostly just existing in the same space. When I stood to leave, he asked if he could see me again. I said yes. On our third date, he told me what he did for a living. Not the details, he never gave me details, but enough. Enough to understand that the beautiful apartment in the seaport, the art, the way certain people reacted when they saw him, wasn't luck or inheritance. "I'll understand if you want to leave," he'd said. I'd stayed. 2 months later, he asked me to marry him. Simple question, simple ring, in a small restaurant in Chinatown where the owner greeted him by name and didn't bring us a menu. "I don't do public scenes," he'd said. "I don't raise my voice, I don't make threats I don't keep, and I don't share." "Okay," I'd said. "If someone hurts you, I need you to tell me, but I also need you to understand. Once I know, I handle it." "How?" "Quietly." I'd agreed. We married at City Hall on a Tuesday afternoon. His witness was a man I never saw again. Mine was my roommate who thought I was making a terrible mistake. Maybe I was. But I'd never felt safer. Now, standing outside the Newbury Street corridor with Curtis staring at his phone, I felt my own phone buzz again. 2:04 p.m. I didn't need to look to know it was Mu-jin. Curtis was still reading his messages. His face had gone from confused to pale. "What the fuck is this?" he muttered. He looked up at me, really looked at me, maybe for the first time today. "Who's texting me?" I didn't answer. "Solene," his voice had changed, less certain. "What did you do?" "I didn't do anything." "Someone just sent me." He stopped, reread his screen. "This doesn't make sense." My phone rang. I let it ring. Curtis was backing away now, slowly, like he was trying to figure out what had changed. Behind him, through the glass, I could see the security guards were no longer casual. They were positioned, alert. The man near Cartier was gone. My phone stopped ringing. Started again immediately. Curtis watched me not answer it. "You need to call them back," he said. It wasn't advice. It was something close to fear. "Why?" "Because," he looked at his phone again, scrolled. His hand was shaking slightly. "Solene, I don't know what's happening, but you need to call whoever that is and tell them this was a misunderstanding." "Was it?" "I didn't, we were just talking. You said we were fine." The phone kept ringing. Curtis took another step back. "I'm leaving," he said. "Okay." "I mean it. I'm going to leave, and we're going to forget this happened." I didn't say anything. He turned and walked quickly toward Arlington Street. Not running. Curtis would never run, but moving with purpose, checking his phone every few steps. I stood there on Newbury Street, 7 months pregnant, holding a garment bag and a cracked phone that wouldn't stop ringing. The security guards were watching me now. Not Curtis, me. One of them spoke into his radio. I answered the phone. "I'm okay," I said in Korean. Silence. "Mu-jin, I'm okay." "Where is he?" His voice was soft. It was always soft. "He left." "Where are you?" "Outside, Newbury Street." "Don't move." The line went dead. I looked back at the corridor. One of the security guards was walking toward me, not the young one from before, the older one, broad-shouldered, gray at his temples. "Ma'am," he stopped a respectful distance away. "I need to ask you some questions." "Am I in trouble?" "No," he glanced back at the building. "But my supervisor wants to review the security footage. There's been a complaint." From Curtis. I can't say. We both knew that meant yes. Do I need to stay? The guard looked uncomfortable. It would be helpful if you could speak with. A car pulled up to the curb. Black, expensive in a way that didn't need badges or modifications. The kind of car that made people move out of its way without thinking about it. The back door opened. I'd asked him not to come. But Gwack Mu-jin had never been good at listening when it came to my safety. He stepped out of the car, and the afternoon went quiet. This is where silence becomes power. If you want to see what happens when someone who never raises their voice finally shows up, subscribe and stay with us. The next chapter changes everything. Mu-jin didn't look like what Curtis probably expected. He wasn't tall, maybe 5'10". He wasn't particularly broad. He wore a simple black suit, no tie, dark overcoat unbuttoned. His face was calm, unremarkable in the way of someone who'd learned early that being forgettable was an advantage. But the security guard stopped walking. Just stopped mid-stride, like he'd hit an invisible wall. Mu-jin's eyes found mine first. Not the guard, not the building, me. Are you hurt? He asked in Korean. No. The baby. We're fine. Only then did he look at the security guard. Is there a problem? Mu-jin asked in English. His accent was slight, carefully neutral. The guard cleared his throat. Sir, I'm going to need to ask you to. I'm here for my wife. The guard glanced at me, back to Mu-jin. Your wife. Solene, Mu-jin extended his hand to me. We're leaving. I took his hand. The guard didn't move to stop us, but he didn't step aside either. Sir, there's been an incident. We need. What kind of incident? Mu-jin's voice remained soft. A complaint was filed about an altercation. By who? The guard hesitated. I asked you a question. Mu-jin's tone hadn't changed, still soft, still polite, but something underneath it made the air feel thinner. Who filed a complaint? I'm not at liberty to. Curtis Finney, I said it quietly. Mu-jin looked at me. The ex-boyfriend. Yes. He nodded slowly, processing, then turned back to the guard. Where is Mr. Finney now? I don't know, sir. You don't know, or you can't say. The guard's radio crackled. A voice came through, too quiet for me to hear. The guard responded. He's here. Not Curtis. Mu-jin. A man emerged from the Newbury Street entrance. Older, 50 maybe, wearing a suit that cost more than some cars. He had the walk of someone used to being in charge. Mall manager, I guessed. Mr. Gwack, the man said, not a question, a confirmation. Mu-jin didn't respond. I'm Gregory Hollies. I manage this property. He smiled professionally. I apologize for the confusion. I wasn't aware your wife was. What happened? Mu-jin interrupted. Hollies' smile flickered. According to our security review, Mrs. Gwack was involved in an altercation with another guest. The other party has filed a complaint alleging harassment, and he grabbed her. The words were simple, factual. Hollies paused. We're still reviewing the footage. Then review it now. Sir, I understand you're concerned, but our protocol. How long have you managed this property, Mr. Hollies? The question was so unexpected that Hollies actually blinked. Excuse me. Your tenure here's how long? 4 years, but I don't see how. And in those 4 years, you've never had an issue with guest safety. We take safety very seriously. Then why, Mu-jin said, still softly, was my pregnant wife grabbed by a man in your corridor while your security watched? The silence that followed was specific, pointed. Hollies opened his mouth, closed it. "The footage will show," Mu-jin continued. "A man preventing my wife from leaving, grabbing her, following her outside. Your security will show they observed this and did nothing." "If the footage corroborates." "The footage already corroborates. Your guard was there, he saw it. He called for backup, but he didn't intervene." Mu-jin paused. "Why was that?" Hollies looked at the security guard. The guard looked at the ground. "I want a copy of the footage," Mu-jin said. "All angles. And I want the name of the attorney representing the man who filed the complaint." "Sir, I can't just—" "Mr. Hollies," Mu-jin's voice dropped even quieter. "I'm not asking." Something passed between them, not a threat, not even close to violence, just understanding. Hollies nodded slowly. "I'll have someone pull the footage." "Thank you." Mu-jin turned to me. "Wait in the car." "Mu-jin." "Please." I'd learned when not to argue. I walked to the car, the driver already holding the door open. I slid into the back seat, still holding the garment bag. Through the tinted window, I watched Mu-jin speak with Hollies. Both men were calm, professional, but Hollies kept nodding, kept glancing back at the building like he was expecting something. After 2 minutes, Mu-jin shook his hand. Then he walked to the car and got in beside me. "What did you say to him?" I asked. "Nothing important." "Mu-jin." He took my hand, carefully, examining my arm where Curtis had grabbed me. There was no bruise, no mark, but Mu-jin studied it like there was evidence only he could see. "Did he hurt you?" he asked. "No." "Did he threaten you?" He mentioned an attorney. Said something about restitution for money he spent on me years ago." Mu-jin's expression didn't change. "What's his full name?" "Curtis Finney." "Where does he work?" I told him. A tech startup in the seaport. I'd seen it mentioned in a Boston Business Journal article 6 months ago. Mu-jin pulled out his phone and sent a text. "What are you doing?" "Nothing." "Please don't." He looked at me then, really looked, and I saw something I rarely saw in him. Not anger, never anger, but something close to it, something cold and decided. "You called me," he said quietly. "You spoke to me in Korean in front of him. That means you wanted me to know." "You wanted me to know," he repeated. "So now I know." The car started moving. "Where are we going?" I asked. "Home." "What about Curtis?" Mu-jin laced his fingers through mine. "Don't worry about Curtis. The pieces are moving now. If you want to see how reputation works when it's weaponized by someone who never raises their voice, hit subscribe. Because what comes next happens quietly and completely." Our apartment overlooked Boston Harbor. Floor-to-ceiling windows, minimalist furniture, art that I'd learned not to ask the price of. Everything clean and uncluttered in that way that requires money and discipline to maintain. Mu-jin had me sit on the couch while he made tea. Not Western tea. Proper Korean tea, seaweed and roasted rice, the kind his mother used to make. "I don't want you to do anything," I said. He didn't respond, just poured the tea with careful precision, handed me a cup. "Mu-jin." "I heard you." "I'm serious. Curtis is he's bitter. He'll get over it." "He grabbed you." "I know, but—" "In public, while you're pregnant, and he followed you when you tried to leave." I had no response to that. Mu-jin sat down beside me, not touching, just close. His phone was face down on the coffee table, but I could see it lighting up with messages every few seconds. "What's happening?" I asked. "Information." "What kind of information?" He picked up his phone, scrolled briefly, then set it back down. Curtis Finney, 27, works at a tech startup called Velocity now. They do data analytics for retail companies. He's a project manager. Salary is $92,000 a year. He lives in a condo in the Fenway his parents co-signed for. He has 2 DUIs from college that were expunged. He's currently dating someone named Rachel Strauss who works in marketing. I stared at him. How do you know all that? I made 3 phone calls. The tea was warm in my hands, grounding. I focused on the temperature instead of the implications. What are you going to do? That depends on what he does next. What if he doesn't do anything? What if he just leaves it alone? Mu-jin looked at me with those dark, steady eyes that had first drawn me in at the museum. Do you think he'll leave it alone? I didn't answer. Because we both knew Curtis. He wouldn't leave it alone. He'd tell people about seeing me. He'd make me into a story. He'd find a way to position himself as the victim, the one who'd been wronged by the girl who'd used him and disappeared. I don't want you to hurt him, I said. I won't. Mu-jin. I won't hurt him. His voice was calm, final, but I won't let him hurt you either. My phone buzzed on the table. I picked it up. A text from a number I didn't recognize. I want to apologize. Can we talk? I showed Mu-jin. He read it, then took my phone and typed a response before I could stop him. What are you doing? Answering. He showed me what he'd written. This is Solene's husband. She won't be speaking with you. Respectfully, delete this number. Mu-jin, you can't just. He'd already sent it. 3 dots appeared immediately. Curtis was typing. The response came through. Who the fuck is this? Mu-jin typed back. Guac Mu-jin, we should meet. I grabbed for the phone. Don't. He held it away, not roughly but firmly. Solene. I don't know who you think you are, but I have legal grounds too. Mu-jin's response was simple. Tomorrow, 3 p.m., Thinking Cup on Tremont, come alone. He won't come, I said. I'm not meeting some random. Mu-jin sent one more message. Curtis, come alone. Then he handed me back my phone and picked up his own. What are you doing? Calling my attorney. Why? Because if he mentions legal grounds again, I want to be prepared. Mu-jin, this is insane. It was just an argument on Newbury Street. It doesn't have to become this big thing. He paused, phone in hand. You're right, he said. It was just an argument. One where a man put his hands on you in public, humiliated you, and then threatened you with legal action. That's all it was. The way he said it. Not sarcastic, not angry, just factual. And somehow that made it worse. I don't want to be the reason someone's life gets destroyed, I said quietly. Mu-jin set down his phone and took my hand. You're not the reason, he said. His choices are the reason. All I'm doing is making sure he understands the consequences of those choices. What if he doesn't come tomorrow? Then I go to him. And say what? Nothing, probably. Mu-jin stood, walked to the window overlooking the harbor. Men like Curtis understand reputation better than they understand morality. I just need him to understand how fragile his reputation is. 2:11 p.m. I picked up my phone and sent a text before I could stop myself. Please don't come. I sent it to Mu-jin. He was standing 8 feet away, but I couldn't say it out loud. His phone buzzed. He looked at it, read my message. Then he turned and looked at me. I'll always come, he said quietly. That's what you still don't understand. You can ask me not to. You can tell me you'll handle it yourself, but if someone hurts you, I'll always come. The message showed as read. But Mu-jin didn't respond. He just walked back to the couch, sat beside me, and finished his tea in silence. Outside, the harbor was gray and restless under the April sky. And somewhere in Boston, Curtis Finney was learning that public cruelty always has an audience. Even when you don't see them watching. The thinking cup was crowded at 3 p.m. Students from Emerson, tourists, people who worked remote and treated coffee shops like offices. The kind of place where nobody paid attention to anyone else, which made it perfect. I wasn't supposed to be there. Mu-jin had been explicit. Stay home, rest, let him handle it. But I'd taken an Uber to Tremont Street and positioned myself at a table near the back, far enough away that Curtis wouldn't see me, but close enough that I could hear. I don't know what I was expecting. Shouting maybe, confrontation, something dramatic. Curtis arrived at 3:07. I saw him scan the coffee shop, saw the moment he spotted Mu-jin sitting alone at a table near the window. Mu-jin had chosen a spot that was simultaneously public and private, visible to the whole shop, but isolated enough for conversation. Curtis approached slowly, cautiously, nothing like the man who'd grabbed me yesterday. He sat down. From where I was sitting, I couldn't see Mu-jin's face, just his posture, relaxed, unhurried. Curtis said something I couldn't hear. Mu-jin responded, also too quiet to hear. This went on for maybe 30 seconds. Normal conversation. Two men talking over coffee. Then Curtis's expression changed. Not fear exactly, more like realization. He leaned back in his chair, ran a hand through his hair, said something that made Mu-jin tilt his head slightly. Mu-jin reached into his jacket and pulled out a phone. Not his, Curtis's phone. I recognized the case, navy blue with a credit card slot. Curtis's face went pale. Mu-jin set the phone on the table between them. Curtis said something sharp, loud enough that two people at the next table glanced over. Mu-jin didn't react. He just waited. Curtis grabbed for the phone. Mu-jin moved it out of reach, not dramatically, just slid it 6 inches to the left. Then he started talking. I couldn't hear the words, but I could see the effect. Curtis went very still. Mu-jin's lips moved steadily, calmly, like he was explaining directions or discussing the weather. He gestured once, a small movement toward the window, toward the street beyond. Curtis shook his head, said something that looked like no. Mu-jin nodded, like he was agreeing, like that was a reasonable response. Then he pulled out his own phone and showed Curtis something on the screen. Curtis leaned forward, squinting. His expression collapsed. He looked up at Mu-jin, said something that was definitely, what the fuck? Mu-jin put his phone away and slid Curtis's phone back across the table. Curtis grabbed it, stared at the screen, scrolled frantically. Then he looked around the coffee shop, not paranoid exactly, but searching, like he was suddenly aware he was being watched. His eyes passed over me without recognition. Mu-jin said something else, short, maybe 2 sentences. Curtis stood up abruptly, knocking his chair back. The coffee shop went quiet, just for a second, long enough for people to register that something was happening. Curtis seemed to realize where he was. He straightened the chair, picked up his phone, and walked out without looking back. Mu-jin stayed seated. He took a sip of his coffee, looked out the window, checked his own phone. After 5 minutes, he stood, left a $20 bill on the table, and walked out. I waited another 3 minutes before following. When I got outside, Mu-jin was standing on the corner of Tremont and Winter, hands in his pockets, looking at nothing in particular. I asked you to stay home, he said without turning around. I know. You don't trust me to handle this. It's not that. He turned to face me. Then what is it? I didn't have an answer. We stood there on the sidewalk while people flowed around us. Boston on a Thursday afternoon, everyone with somewhere to be. What did you say to him? I asked. The truth. Which truth? That what happened on Newbury Street was recorded. That his employer is currently reviewing the footage. That his girlfriend received an anonymous email this morning with screenshots of his text messages to you from 3 years ago, the ones where he called you things I won't repeat. My stomach dropped. Mu-jin. That a Boston Globe reporter received an anonymous tip about an incident at a luxury shopping corridor involving a project manager from a local tech startup. That his name will probably be mentioned. That this is the kind of story people share. You're ruining his life. No, Mu-jin's voice was soft, always soft. He ruined his own life, yesterday on Newbury Street when he chose cruelty over dignity. What else? I told him that if he ever speaks to you, looks at you, or mentions your name to anyone, I'll make sure every professional connection he has in Boston receives a detailed report of his behavior, with evidence. You can't just. I already did. A bus passed. Someone dropped something that clattered on the sidewalk. Normal city sounds. What did you show him on your phone? I asked. Photos. Of what? People he knows, his boss, his girlfriend, his parents, random photos from social media. Mu-jin paused. I didn't say anything about them. I just showed him the pictures, let him draw his own conclusions. That's a threat. It's information. Mu-jin. Solene. He stepped closer, took my hands. I didn't threaten him. I didn't touch him. I didn't raise my voice. I just made sure he understood how visible he is, how fragile his life is when someone decides to pay attention. That's cruel. Yes, Mu-jin agreed. It is. We stood there. I told you I'd handle it, he said quietly. You didn't believe me. I believed you, I didn't want it to be like this. How did you want it to be? I had no answer. Because the truth was, I didn't know. I just knew that watching someone's life unravel, even someone who'd hurt me, felt too much like power I didn't want. Mu-jin's phone buzzed. He looked at it, read something, then showed me the screen. An email from Gregory Hollies, the mall manager. Subject line, security footage available per your request. Are you going to use it? I asked. Only if he makes me. And if he doesn't, then it gets deleted, along with everything else. Why? Mu-jin looked at me like the answer was obvious. Because I'm not interested in destroying him. I'm interested in protecting you. He put his phone away and offered me his arm. Come on, he said, let's go home. We walked back toward the seaport in silence. And somewhere in Boston, Curtis Finney was learning what silence really means when it comes from someone who doesn't need volume to make you disappear. This is the power of restraint. If you understand why the quietest response can be the most devastating, subscribe now, because the consequences are just beginning. Curtis Finney's life didn't end overnight. It eroded. On Friday morning, Velocity Now posted an internal memo about company values and professional conduct. No names mentioned, but Curtis was placed on temporary administrative leave pending a review of recent behavioral concerns. By Friday afternoon, his name appeared in a Boston Globe article titled "Luxury Shopping District Grapples with Safety Concerns." 4 paragraphs, buried on page B7. But online, where these things matter, it got shared. His name was mentioned once, including an incident involving Curtis Finney, a local tech worker, who was asked to leave the premises after a confrontation with another guest. Not damning, but searchable. Rachel Strauss, his girlfriend, changed her relationship status to single on Saturday morning. By Monday, the Greater Boston Young Professionals Board, a networking organization Curtis had joined 2 years ago, sent an email thanking him for his service and informing him they were moving in a different direction with leadership. His country club membership was suspended pending review on Tuesday. On Wednesday, the dean of students at his alma mater received an anonymous donation of $50,000 to the campus sexual harassment prevention program. The donation came with a note requesting enhanced programming around respect, consent, and professional behavior. Curtis's name wasn't mentioned, but everyone in his network knew someone who knew someone who'd heard something. That's how reputation works in Boston. The city is small when it wants to be. 6 degrees of separation becomes 2. Everyone knows someone who knows your boss, your landlord, your parents. Mu-jin had done nothing illegal. He'd made phone calls, sent emails, made sure certain people received certain information, all true, all verifiable. He'd simply amplified what Curtis had done publicly and made sure the right people were paying attention. On Thursday morning, Curtis called me. I didn't answer. He left a voicemail. Solene, please, I don't know what's happening, but it needs to stop. I've lost my job. Rachel won't talk to me. My parents are asking questions I can't answer. Just tell your husband to stop. Please, I'm sorry. I'm so fucking sorry. I played the message for Mu-jin. He listened without expression. Do you want me to stop? He asked. I don't know. That's not an answer. I looked at him. He sounds scared. He should be. Mu-jin. He grabbed you, Solene, in public, while you're carrying our child. He humiliated you, threatened you, and his only regret is that there were consequences. How do you know he doesn't actually regret what he did? Because, Mu-jin said calmly, if he regretted it, he would have apologized to you, not asked you to call me off. Those are different things. I had no response to that. My phone rang again. Curtis. I let it go to voicemail. This time, the message was different. Fine, fine. You want to destroy me. Congratulations, you win. I hope you're fucking happy. The click of him hanging up was sharp. Mu-jin's phone buzzed. He read the message, then showed it to me. It was from someone at the Boston Business Journal, a reporter asking for comment on allegations of workplace misconduct at Velocity Now involving a former employee. Are you going to respond? I asked. No. Why not? Because I didn't send them anything. They're investigating on their own now. That's what happens when you become a story. On Friday, Curtis posted on LinkedIn a long message about learning, growth, taking responsibility for past behavior. It was carefully worded, vague enough to mean nothing and everything. 43 people liked it. 217 people shared it. The comments were split, some supportive, many skeptical, a few brutal. By the following Monday, Curtis had deactivated all his social media. That's when the Boston Globe published a follow-up. Not a big story, just 3 paragraphs on their city and region blog. Former Velocity Now manager reflects on public incident. Curtis Finney, 27, who recently departed from data analytics startup Velocity Now, posted a statement last week addressing past behavior after an incident at a Newbury Street shopping corridor earlier this month. While Finney did not specify details, Sources indicate the incident involved a verbal confrontation with a former romantic partner. Velocity now declined to comment on personnel matters. Finney could not be reached for this article. 3 paragraphs. Enough to make sure his name stayed in the search results. I read it at our kitchen table while Mu-jin made breakfast. He didn't ask what I was reading. He already knew. Does it ever end? I asked. That depends on him. How? If he disappears, moves on, rebuilds quietly, then yes, it ends. The story gets old, people forget. And if he doesn't? Mu-jin set a plate in front of me. Eggs, toast, fruit cut into precise pieces. Then I make sure people remember, he said simply. I stared at the food. I didn't want this. I know. I just wanted him to leave me alone. He is leaving you alone. Because he's terrified. Yes, Mu-jin sat down across from me. And terror is the only language men like Curtis understand. Not reason, not compassion, not even shame, just consequences. My phone buzzed. Another unknown number. I almost didn't answer. But something made me. Hello? Mrs. Gwack, a woman's voice. Professional, recorded background noise of an office. Yes. This is Melissa Chen from WBZ-TV. I'm a producer working on a story about public safety in luxury retail spaces. I was wondering if you'd be willing to speak with us about your experience on Newbury Street. My heart stopped. How did you get this number? Public records. Your name was mentioned in the police report filed by mall security. I didn't file a police report. No, ma'am, the mall did. Standard procedure for incidents involving physical contact. I looked at Mu-jin. He was watching me. I'm not interested in speaking with you, I said. I understand, but I want you to know that we've reviewed the security footage, and we believe your story deserves to be heard. What happened to you was unacceptable, and... Thank you for calling, I said and hung up. I put the phone down carefully. Mu-jin reached across the table and took my hand. They're not going to stop, I said. No, not immediately. What do I do? Nothing. You do nothing. I'll handle it. How? He smiled slightly, the same way I handle everything, quietly. Within 2 hours, Melissa Chen from WBZ-TV received a phone call from her news director. The Newbury Street story was being pulled. Not killed, exactly, just deprioritized. I didn't ask how Mu-jin did it. I'd learned that some questions don't need answers. By the end of the month, Curtis Finney had moved to New York. His LinkedIn profile listed him as freelance consultant. His Twitter account was deleted. His Instagram was private. He didn't disappear completely. But he disappeared enough. And Boston, like all cities with long memories, filed his name away in that specific category reserved for people who'd miscalculated power. Not dangerous. Just not worth knowing. This is what happens when reputation becomes currency. If you're invested in seeing how this ends, how Solene heals, how silence becomes strength, subscribe now. One more chapter to go. October in Boston is sharp and beautiful. The trees along the Charles River turned gold and rust, shedding leaves that collected along the paths where people jogged and walked dogs and pretended they weren't checking their phones every 30 seconds. I was sitting on a bench near the Harvard Bridge, watching the rowing teams practice. Head of the Charles weekend. The river was crowded with boats, the banks crowded with spectators. My daughter was asleep in her stroller, 3 months old. Perfect. Dark hair like her father, my nose, lungs that worked overtime when she wanted something. We'd named her Isol. Do in Korean, something gentle and necessary and overlooked until you paid attention. Mu-jin was somewhere in the crowd getting coffee. He'd insisted on coming even though I'd told him I was fine alone. He didn't believe in alone anymore, not after Newbury Street. The therapist I'd started seeing said that was normal. Trauma response. Overprotectiveness masking as love. I didn't think it was masking anything. I thought it was just love. My phone buzzed. A message from Mu-jin. Vendor ran out of oat milk, getting regular. That okay? I smiled and responded. Perfect. The rowing teams moved in synchronized precision down the river. 8 people, 1 boat, everyone pulling in the same direction. I thought about Curtis sometimes. Not often, but sometimes. I'd looked him up once, late at night when I couldn't sleep and Isol was feeding. His LinkedIn profile was still sparse. Freelance consultant, based in Brooklyn now. He'd rebuilt quietly, probably told people in New York that he'd wanted a fresh start, left out the why. I didn't hate him anymore. I didn't forgive him either. I just let him exist in my past the way he'd always existed. A person who'd taught me what I wouldn't accept, who'd shown me the difference between being quiet and being powerless. They're not the same thing. Silence isn't always survival. Sometimes it's strategy. Sorry, Mu-jin appeared with 2 coffee cups. They're changing vendors next year. This is unacceptable. I took the coffee. It was perfect temperature, perfect amount of cream. He sat down beside me, looked at Isol sleeping. She's good, he asked. She's great. We watched the river together. After a while, Mu-jin said, Do you ever regret it? Regret what? That day, Newbury Street, not walking away sooner. I thought about it. No, I said finally. I regret that I had to stop protecting him, but I don't regret what happened after. Even though it got ugly. It was always ugly. It just finally became visible. Mu-jin nodded. What about me? Do you regret what I did? I looked at him. This man who'd never raised his voice. Who'd dismantled someone's life with phone calls and information and strategic silence. No, I said. Why not? Because you didn't do it for revenge. You did it because someone hurt your wife, and you made sure they understood that had consequences. Some people would call that revenge. Some people would be wrong. A rowing team passed close to the bank. Someone on shore cheered. The late afternoon sun made the water look like hammered gold. I used to think power was loud, I said. That strong people were the ones who shouted and demanded and made themselves impossible to ignore. And now I think power is knowing you don't have to shout. Knowing that your presence, your choices, your silence, all of it carries weight. Mu-jin smiled. You sound like my mother. Is that a compliment? Yes. Isol stirred, made a small sound without waking. I adjusted her blanket. What would you have done, I asked, if I'd asked you to stop, after that first day? Mu-jin considered this. I would have stopped the public part, he said finally, but I still would have made sure he knew I was watching, that I'd always be watching, that if he ever came near you again, there wouldn't be a second conversation. That's still a threat. Yes, he didn't apologize for it. We sat there until the sun started to set over the river, painting everything in shades of amber and shadow. On the way home, we passed the Newbury Street corridor. I didn't look. I didn't need to. That version of myself, the one who'd held a garment bag and tried to disappear, was gone. Not erased, just evolved. I'd learned something that day that I'd probably spend the rest of my life understanding. That protection isn't always loud. That justice doesn't always look like courtrooms and convictions. That sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is let someone who underestimated you realize they were wrong. Not by arguing, not by proving, just by existing beyond their ability to diminish you. Curtis had seen me as powerless because I'd been quiet. He hadn't understood that quiet was a choice, not a condition. When we got home, Mu-jin put Isol to bed while I stood by the window overlooking the harbor. Boston looked beautiful from this height, all lights and possibility and the promise of anonymity. But I knew better now. Boston saw everything. It just chose what to remember. And what it remembered about Curtis Finney was simple. Not that he'd been cruel, but that his cruelty had been expensive. That was the only currency this city understood. Mu-jin came up behind me, wrapped his arms around my waist. "What are you thinking?" he asked. "That I'm grateful." "For what?" "For you, for this. For learning that I don't have to be loud to be heard." He kissed my temple. "You were always heard," he said quietly. "You just didn't have the right audience." We stood there, watching the harbor lights reflect off dark water. And somewhere in Brooklyn, Curtis Finney was probably telling someone a version of this story where he was blameless, where a crazy ex and her dangerous husband had conspired to ruin him for no reason. Maybe people believed him. Maybe they didn't. It didn't matter anymore. Because the truth, the real truth, wasn't about him at all. It was about a 23-year-old woman who'd been grabbed on Newbury Street and had chosen, for the first time, not to protect the person who'd hurt her. That was the revolution. Not violence, not revenge. Just the quiet, irreversible decision to stop carrying other people's shame. The rest had simply been consequences. And consequences, I'd learned, don't need to be loud to be permanent. They just need to be true. If you believe in stories where justice arrives without noise, where power is measured in restraint and reputation matters more than revenge, subscribe. These stories matter. Your support matters. Share this if someone needs to hear it. And remember, silence isn't weakness. It's strategy. Thank you for watching until the end. Not revenge, reputation correction.